right. Hi, guys. This is Ellison with the Happy Hormones Dietitian, and I am here today with Letisha Bates to chat a little bit about her experience in the healthcare world. So she has an extensive background in nursing, health coaching, and now is on her way to being a dietitian. So before we go any further, Letisha, I would love for you to tell us, in your own words, a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Yeah. So you kind of gave like the greatest overview ever. I need to start using that when I have to explain it to people. No, I have 15 years of experience in healthcare. I initially started out in surgical technology, so I got to do a lot of the surgery side of things. But I just did not live in an area that made that career feasible for me. You know, I didn't live near any operating rooms, which didn't occur to me until after I graduated. So so then I went into nursing and I did love nursing, but I worked in that field at bedside for a decade. And with
Wow.
my own personal health journey, I started seeing more of a need and more of a purpose in myself that I could help more people in a different way that I
Mm.
really enjoyed if I went into health coaching. So I actually did that in 2019. I opened my own health coaching business. I went and got my certifications and everything that I needed to do that. But it wasn't long after getting into health coaching that I started thinking a lot more long term. I want to be a registered dietitian. And as you know, the registered dietitian, like there were just some nuances that I wasn't comfortable with of just
Mhm.
remaining a health coach. I think it was amazing for me to like be a health coach first going into that,
Mhm.
but it was pretty quickly. I remember like within the first year, it was like, okay, like I need to go back to school and get my degrees and experience and everything I need to become a dietitian. And so now here I am. At
That is
almost
awesome.
the going in next semester will be my senior year, and then I'll have my intern and master's year on top of that. So I'm getting closer to the finish line.
Ah, that's awesome. I'm so excited for you. So I would love to hear a little bit more about what types of patients you saw in the hospital, because I also used to work in a hospital as a dietitian. And one of the things that always frustrated me was just kind of the lack of impact that you have on your patients, because they're really, not in a place to kind of receive that nutrition information or health information, kind of whatever
Mhm.
field you're in. So I would love to hear about the
Yeah.
patients that you treated in the hospital.
Yeah. So I will preface by saying I am a licensed practical nurse, depending on what location you're at. That may be an LVN or LPN. A lot of people think that I'm an RN, and I went to school to become an LPN because you could be out in 12 months, have your nursing license, and be on
That's
the floor
awesome.
working. Okay. And then the way my life was set up, I needed a career that was quick. Like I needed to get
Yep.
in the workforce and had bills to pay and so on. So I do recall, I think it was two different instances where I tried to go back to school to become an RN. And I just could not get myself to do it. And I carried
Uh-huh.
a lot of shame for a long time. You know, it was money wasted. And
Mm.
when you're an LPN, I feel like there is this like overhanging, like you have to become an RN for a lot
Mhm.
of this. And so I just could not get myself into it. And now I know why. It's because it just wasn't my purpose. And like as soon as I made a decision to go the nutrition science route,
Mm.
it couldn't stop me.
Yep.
It was a totally different atmosphere. But being an LPN, my options as a nurse were a little bit more limited, especially in my area. I live in a rural area in the southeast part of the map. So most of us tend to work either like home health or maybe some like office clinics, things like that, or
Mm-hmm.
you're basically left to like long-term care. So most of my 10 years was working with geriatrics and working in long-term
Hmm.
care. The last 7 years of my nursing career, I actually worked in a facility that had skilled care. And
Mm.
so my patients were a mix between, there were long-term some were pretty critical, to be honest with you. And then there were people who had knee or hip replacements that needed therapy, because we did have physical therapy, occupational, speech therapy, all of that on staff. So I did have a lot of like people who came in just to get recovered and then were back on their way. So I kind of had a mix. But I do feel overall leaning a lot more towards the geriatric population.
Sure.
But still, I mean, even in that setting, kind of like you mentioned, while I had a lot of face time with my patient, I think most nurses would agree with me, your patient load is so intense, and you don't sometimes honestly get to give the care that you want, or have all of the time to do the things that you want, or maybe that your patient feels like they need, and stuff like that too. So what health counseling I probably did as a nurse, I feel like probably fell on deaf ears a lot of times. You're just like
Yes.
things, some people were determined to get better, but a lot of times you're just, I can't imagine. I look back now and I think about what being a dietitian in that like similar facility would be like. And I can see how dietitians may feel that way sometimes in the clinic or in a facility setting. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit more about that decision to become a health coach.
Yeah. So I was on my own personal health fitness at that time, called it a weight loss journey. After the birth of my second son, I reached my heaviest weight. I was not my healthiest. I didn't feel healthy. I had a lot of things that were going on that I just knew at my age I shouldn't have been dealing with. And so at that time, I knew that I had polycystic ovary syndrome. I knew that I had PCOS. I was diagnosed a couple of years prior to conceiving my second son. I actually had to have a little bit of help conceiving him. But even being a nurse, someone who has, health education, I didn't really learn or know anything about my PCOS for a long time. Like, honestly, I got diagnosed at 23, and I'm thinking I was around in my 30s before I really started diving into what it was. But I knew that it was the reason why I had period problems. I rarely had period, and I knew it was the reason why I have always struggled with my weight, even since childhood. So, once I had my second son, I reached my heaviest weight. I knew I had this condition that was making it harder for me than probably most people. So I finally got it in my head to change my lifestyle, no matter how long it took, or no matter how hard it was, because you name it, I've done it. I mean, I was the teenager that was in Weight Watchers, which that's a whole other topic for another day. Like, I've done all the fads, all the gimmicks. I can't tell you how many gym memberships. I can't tell you how many pounds I lost and gained right back. And like, that was my life up until I think I was around 25, and I started making slow changes. And in fact, the very first thing I did was I went walking at the park. And a lot of people would not believe this if they knew me today, but I would drop my oldest son off at preschool, go walk at the park with my youngest in a stroller, and I would have to have my inhaler just to be able to finish that. Like, I couldn't even walk around a park for an hour on like steady ground without having difficulty. I couldn't do squats. I couldn't jump or anything like that. So I just made small changes that were feasible and started building on them over time. Some of my goals got a little bit grander and a little bit grander. And then eventually I decided I wanted to get into the gym and start weightlifting. I found that I really loved weightlifting, but I just didn't have all the tools at home. And so I got into the gym, started weightlifting. At that point in time, I think I lost like right at 100 pounds total.
Wow.
And so, I started getting into like the fitness industry, and I initially was I just wanted to be a personal trainer, right? I wanted to show other people how they could lose 100 pounds like I did, and help people correct their form and stuff like that. So I initially started at NASM doing their personal training course. So I started there, and then something started changing. I don't know exactly what it was, but I thought, I don't just want to be a personal trainer. And I don't say just a personal trainer, like it's a great career, but like I knew for me, like I wanted a little bit more like on the health side of things. So in the middle of my course for personal training, I actually enrolled in a different course that was holistic nutrition and weight loss for women, I think is what the certification was. And so I finished it. I got my certification, actually got registered as a health coach under the Health Coach Alliance, went back and finished the course in personal training, and just started helping people, because once I was very vulnerable and shared that whole journey openly on social media and things like that. A lot of people are reaching out, like asking for help. Like, how did you do it? How can I do it? And things like that. So that's where I saw the demand and the need for it. Also at the same time, I was prepping for a bodybuilding competition. And this is the pivotal point of my career. This is the pivotal point of everything. So after I lose 100 pounds, which took several years, by the way, I hit my 30s and I say, well, I want to compete in bodybuilding. I've been lifting weights for a few years. I have changed my physique so much. And for someone who basically grew up obese, becoming a bodybuilder was just not in the cards for me. And I wanted to do the undoable, right? And so, I did it. I did it. I transformed my body. I had the help with, some coaches along the way and things like that. Stepped on stage as a figure competitor. It was probably my most leanest, most muscular physique I've ever had in my life. Like, honestly, when I go back and see photos, it's like, oh my gosh, like at that time, I didn't even realize just how how my physique looked. And then after the competition, I was hungry for that to be my career. So a lot of people may not know that, but like that first one, like I was bitten and I was ready to come off stage and get ready to go back on again and keep going. Okay. Actually at my competition, a professional bodybuilder pulled my husband to the side and said, I don't care what you have to do, but do whatever it takes to get her on a national stage, because she's got what it takes.
Wow.
Yeah. So
oh my gosh.
My ego or whatever was growing, and I was just like, I have to go back. I have to go back. And then my body said, nuh-uh, you're not doing it. Like all of a sudden, I'm not going to go into like the slew of symptoms, but I gained 30 pounds in a month, still eating chicken and broccoli, exercising every day. But I was so swollen that it looked like I ate a bunch of bumblebees. Like my body was just inflamed from head to toe. And actually, I started looking at my body composition. And so once I reached the exact same weight that I was right before I started prepping for that competition, I put those two photos next to each other and they look two totally different people. I lost muscle mass. I gained fat mass, even though I was the same weight, even though I was still, dieting and exercising. Had been long gone. Libido had been long gone. My hair started falling out in clumps. I was now all of a sudden, like, I used to be a hot natured person. Now I'm freezing all the time. Digestion shut down. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty, but like I could not have proper digestion without aids and stuff to help me. So like, like I've worked so hard for 5 years to finally reach this like body and physique that I've been striving for, that everybody told me I needed. I've always been told, like, if you lose weight, you'll fix your PCOS, like everything in life is going to be fixed, right? And now, like, all of it's getting ripped away from me. All of it's getting ripped away from me, and I couldn't understand. And there is kind of this like shame on rebounding after a competition. And so I didn't know how to like openly talk about it until much later in life, because I was like, if I talk about what all is going wrong with me, I'm just going to get blamed. Like you didn't do things right after your competition or this and that.
Yes.
And even though I kept trying and I used all the knowledge that I had to try to fix whatever was going on, my health was spiraling out of the control to the point that I just couldn't get out of bed. Like my husband would have to ask me, like, "Are you going to get out of bed today?" Like I didn't want to leave the house. I mean, it could be dead of summer, and I was in like a hoodie and sweats, like I didn't want to be seen.